Hey, friends, I'm happy to welcome back Charles Ross, Formosa Ross. Take your choice. The Tartaria discussion, also known, of course, as Charles Formosa, who is an independent researcher, visual historian, and alternative history investigator, exploring the hidden architecture, symbols, lineages, myths, and technologies buried beneath the official record of civilization. And in this free-flowing conversation, we're going to journey beyond, way beyond the familiar Tartarian terrain. I say that three times quickly. The Tartarian terrain and into the stranger edges of Charles's recent research. So, Charles, welcome, and I want to open the floor to what you've been looking into most intensively right now. What's been revealing itself to you lately?
Yes, yeah, no, uh, I've been going down a lot of rabbit holes, pardon the pun. I like to say that still after starting to kind of use that phrase a lot. Um, I I've been looking into a lot of the esoteric connections between the Merovingian line of Mary Magdalene and the Gnostics, and I sort of started that around about the time when you and Guy Anderson and Elizabeth Hancock had a discussion together
Yeah.
in our previous chat. And yeah, it's very interesting to find more connections to continue to sort of add to the research. It's taken me down a lot of sort of side quests. I've ended up in Japan. I found a a tomb there, possibly a secondary sort of Christian faith that has attached itself to Jesus' teachings and actually considers Jesus to have died there after
Mm.
his resurrection. I've also found a connection to France and Jesus's firstborn daughter possibly escaping to France. And because there are ancient celebrations there that involve Mary, or actually her name was Ta Mary, being taken out of the water and then paraded down the town. So there seems to be a connection there with her arriving in in a town in the south of France. And I'm at the beginning of doing that research, but the actual ceremony goes back to a non-specific time many centuries ago, and it's still something that people celebrate today. The arrival of one of Jesus's daughters, or the daughter of Mary Magdalene. Now, some of those stories do say that she may have been John the Baptist's daughter, and then that possibly Jesus adopted her. But what I still can't get over is the fact that we are talking about Jesus staying on earth after the resurrection, and that there was this connection with his kingdom on earth, which may have been Tartaria, because the
Right.
kingdom of Jesus is a reference on many of the maps of the 15th and 16th century.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's that is so mind-boggling.
that's
Wow.
it's absolutely amazing. Yeah,
And
I'm
that
trying to
right
get
there,
more.
that
Yeah,
resets potentially resets the entire civilizational model, right, of reality.
yeah, yeah. It does, and it also gives you that motivation that I'm looking for everywhere to
Mm.
hide this empire, this Eurasian kind of steppe people
Right,
empire. Yeah.
right. Okay, let's start breaking it down to little more understandable pieces. So the Moorish America, Amaruca, and the Lost People. Can we speak just a bit about that? America as an ancient land renamed and overwritten with deeper Moorish, Tamarian, and Egyptian connections beneath the official story. So the question, I guess, is when you say Moorish America or Amaruka, Tamari or Kushata, what are you decoding about this land?
Yes. So, well, what I'm realizing is that we are fighting low frequency, sort of greedy lineages that have some kind of motivation for revenge, and usually with things like this, when you get very powerful narratives being woven into what is essentially biblical history. I mean, there's a reason why biblical history seems to resonate and the symbolism resonates. And it's very empowering to realize that this is not just limited to the Western world, that this transcends space and time almost.
Right, right.
And maybe we have allowed a Christendom hierarchy, if you like, to control that information and place it within very specific faiths and labels and
You'd be speaking about the Babylonian Vatican complex there, and probably
yeah.
the Saracen Jesuitical agenda threaded there
Yes,
somewhere.
absolutely. If you think of Jesuits as the foot soldiers of this Christendom
Yeah,
machine, which is really just a continuation of the Holy Roman Empire,
yeah, right.
in the way that they control the religious aspect. And then obviously you have the city of London as a commercial hub, which was given by the Count of Orange in the 1700s, I think, to to the Rothschilds. We have to say Rothschilds, I think, to some extent,
Yeah,
because that is that Moorish Third Empire. So and what they're involved in, the Rothschilds renaming themselves as the Rockefellers, and then controlling J.P. Morgan and all of the other kind of tentacles, if you like. What you end up getting is this sort of almost an Ashkenazi Jewish Moorish line that
yeah,
that is controlling the narrative when it comes to the original Jews, who are obviously the native Hebrews of a promised land. And if we have to find that promised land, we can't pretend that that's biblical myth, because everything now that we thought was maybe myth, that a lot of people thought was myth, was just controlled information by the hierarchy, which is an incredibly wealthy, powerful Vaticano empire of the dragon, right?
yeah,
Because all of
right.
these have names, all of the symbolism has meaning. There is nothing, there's no space wasted. If there is a symbol and a flag, you have to understand what that means. Like if there's a flag of Portugal, you have to know that those are Moorish cities on there. And
That's
if
right.
and even the Portuguese themselves probably are not aware of this, if my comment section is anything to go by.
Right.
But understand the symbolism. There is nothing here that is a mistake. If it's called Vaticano and you don't understand what that has to do with the Empire of the Dragon, then how are you going to find out that there's miles of libraries under there that are basically hiding the truth of our realm, you know? And
Yeah,
it's the same, I think, with Paris. A lot of these ancient cities, most of what we really are looking for is underground.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that becomes such an extraordinary piece. And when again, Charles, when we consider that, we really are sort of ignominious little bacterium species scuttling around on the surface of the earth, and we just need to consider how the density of the mass of this plane of existence, how real inner Earth civilizations and ecosystems and biospheres exist in this honeycomb plane. It really does just beg a belief. So let's talk a little about America. Just finishing on America. Was America discovered or conquered, renamed, and disconnected from its original memory? Just touch on that piece.
No, I don't think there was. If you'd asked me this 6 months ago, I might have answered in a different way. But as I continue my research into the European empires that did conquer America, starting in the end of the 15th century when the Moors were kicked out of their great colonies, like Al-Andalus and Cordoba,
Mm.
around 1495, 1498. They had a great military, but they were kicked out, and I think the navy, the these Barbary pirates were the Berbers. So when we say Barbary Coast pirates, we're actually referring to this naval empire, or what was left of it after the reconquesta of Queen Isabella, and I think that was a gradual thing. I don't think anything happens within a few years. I think
Yeah.
it's a gradual thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as the Moors take to the ocean, they use the skull and crossbones because the skull and crossbones was always a sigil of theirs. This is not just pirates trying to come up with a scary flag to scare the Dutch East India Company in the 15th century.
Right.
This is also their symbolism, which is a profound awakening in itself when you understand that the skull, crossbones, and the various geometrical variations of that was actually a reference to their, like, not just secret societies, because that happened later, but then if you compare that to the Prussian Empire's skull and crossbones, and then the secret societies we have today that many presidents were part of, you can see that
Mm.
that there's a connecting thread there with
Skull
the
and
symbolism.
Bones. You're talking about the
Skull and
Skull and Bones
Bones,
Society,
Skull and
right?
Bones, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like, so you have these like Blackbeard. Blackbeard wasn't called Blackbeard because he had a black beard. He was called Blackbeard because these are the Moors, and now
Mm.
creating new little empires. And there were a few like island nations. In the end, I think they became amalgamated into the Dutch East India Company. So there's no such thing as like the Moors just disappear. You don't just disappear. You become part of. You attach yourself to other things, and then I think some of them ended up being contracted into the British Army. So yeah, I mean, this is quite fascinating. It's something that's again hidden from us. We're not allowed to see that connection, even though there obviously was an
Right.
incredibly large naval fleet of the Moors that did not stay around
Right.
to be massacred in
Right.
Spain or Portugal.
Right. So even
Yeah.
those kind of London outside Buckingham Palace and what have you, you see those like wearing those large bearskin
Yeah.
helmets, which is essentially an afro, right? From what I can
Yes,
see.
I mean, yeah, people find this hard to believe, but it absolutely is. I found that the Amazigh had this hair. Their hair was styled to give them this sense of authority, to kind of almost celebrate this elongated skull that they associated with the ruling elite. And then you also have the British guards,
Yeah.
and I try to kind of show that the roots of a lot of these military forces, the origin lies very much in this great sort of original sort of old Mecca empire, and
Yes.
we need to embrace that because it is not going away. As people
Right.
add more information and research to these arguments.
So
But you can see this also in Nazi Germany, that there were
yes,
entire
exactly. Exactly.
entire Jewish
Yeah.
squadron. There was a Crimean Tartarian
Yes.
squadron that was part of the SS. Yeah.
When I used to be very friendly with the princes with the royal family in Jordan 25 odd years ago, and I
Wow.
remember when one of the senior princes was about to become initiated into kind of adulthood. I guess he must have been at that time 19, 20, 21. And I remember sitting with him in London. He was telling me that he had to enact something as all princes of the Hashemite dynasty in Jordan had to do, which is to go on horseback from Jordan all the way to Russia, essentially, and it was all to do with some ancient Tartarian trek. It was
Wow.
extraordinary. I mean, that's a piece. I mean, that was kind of very quiet. That wasn't something broadcast on the media, but I remember my friend, the Prince Jordan, explaining to me and showing me what he was having to enact for many weeks. There was even talk at that time about me joining him on horseback and doing that. But I never understood. He was talking about Tartaria. This is 25 odd years ago. And I remember him telling me about Tartaria. So the royal Hashemites, the royal family in Jordan, who hold the balance of power in the Middle East, knew all about ancient Tartaria and the connection to lineage and blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
Something odd there. Let's
Yeah.
vault into to Queen Caliph. So the point I wanted to get to was: are we indeed killing another sacred cow when we talk about the possibility that the black-skinned peoples may well have been the progenitors of slavery themselves?
Yes, every single American state, I've been informed, had black landowners, plantation owners that hired. I mean, they weren't just obviously targeting black slaves. They had slaves from all kinds of backgrounds. These were called indentured servants, so they were under indentured servitude, and this is not something that is widely spoken of, because we have this narrative of white plantation owners with black
Right,
slaves,
right.
but there were black plantation owners in every state, and this seems quite obvious to me. There's a just because there is a difference between wealth and ownership between different families doesn't necessarily mean that those families are from a specific ethnic background.
Right.
I think we like to simplify the world all the time, and I think we have these stories about in Virginia in the 1620s, 1630s, when the British built their colonies there, and they had to create some kind of sort of difference between hierarchy of maybe white and black slaves, because they were interbreeding, I guess.
Right.
And they wanted to create this illusion that a black slave and a white slave, that there's a differentiation to sort of stop people from working together, to to stop any of these rebellious uprisings that were one of around 1920, 1620, 1625. So you could very well say, and I don't think anyone could really argue with you, that before the 17th century or the early 17th century, there were no white people, because nobody was ever categorized as that. So,
Wow, good God. Good
right, I
God.
know. Yeah.
So this is all about politicization of culture, and then
Yeah.
engineering, orchestrating a dialectic. Very clever stuff, if you think about it. And then pot boil,
Yeah.
reduce everything down to, yeah, these smallest indivisible little pieces. And everyone moves into kind of cultural and psycho-civilizational dissonance with no real memory of issuance and so on. It's very clever stuff if you think about it. And that
Yeah,
presumably,
it's genius. Yeah, because it means that people will control each other for you.
right, right, exactly. And that,
Right.
well, that government, bureaucracy, technocracy, classic case in point. Our little pen pushing clerks become the enforcers and the executors of these statutes and codes and ordinances which strip away our freedoms and our liberties, and we become all entrapped and enslaved. Very, very clever stuff indeed. And one wonders,
Yeah.
to what great extent it was really the signature of the Brotherhood of the Snake that was really behind the
Mm.
progenesis of all of this diabolical chronology and history. Let's talk about Queen Calafia, Black Queens,
Yes.
Griffin, feminine sovereignty, and California's mythic origin story and mythology as coded historical memory. So, going into Queen Calafia and the Griffin legions, what is that story really pointing to?
Well, I'm working on a video, and I can start to kind of lay the foundations for that. Where I believe that a lot of movies, a lot of Hollywood, the initial concept for Hollywood was to tell the truth about everything that the British and Holy Roman Empire had done. Because when you're in the United States, you're not in a country, you're in the corporation, and they want to use Hollywood to loose that karma, the bad karma, the curses that they've realized are being bestowed upon their family, and it's their children who end up suffering, you know. So I just like to go through a very brief history of America, and I might use some images. Is that okay?
Please,
Yeah,
wish you would. Yeah. Take
yeah.
full
So
control.
so here we have the true America, the original America.
Yeah.
Now these murals are still around. They're still available for people to look through. Some of these are in stately homes, so they're not going to get destroyed because they're incredibly valuable. Here you can see a what many people have mistakenly called a crocodile, but it's actually one of the original sort of lizards, large lizards that we call dinosaurs today. Obviously, dinosaurs don't exist. That's a piece
Fabrication.
of misinformation. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking here about large lizards and obviously dragons. Now, dragons or griffins or any of those creatures that we consider to be mythological, those were actually trained to eat human meat by Queen Califia. That was her sort of incredible war machine. Now the Moors also had their own animals that because they were very in touch with nature.
Yeah.
So they had elephants, but Queen Califia had griffins, and you can look at this in old movies. It comes out a lot. There's a lot of flying creatures. All of this Greek mythology it all comes from actual animals, and it's very hard to make anyone believe that griffins existed, because unfortunately we are not sort of allowed to admit to that. But if it's in a movie, usually they want to remove it in the next reset. So the coming reset is a chance to add the word great in front of anything. So Great Wall of China, Great Tartary, Great, the Great, Empire, So anything with great in front was removed during a reset and then relabeled. So yeah, I mean, we have some insight through these ancient Moorish palaces and manors and stately homes. We still have the clues. Old paintings seem to be one of the main ways to kind of rediscover the past, because nobody wants to destroy those because they are literally priceless. This is America. This is an old map of the 1500s. You've got the complexion here is the main point for this image. Just to kind of see who we're talking about when we talk about America. We're not talking about these sort of light copper colored cowboys and Indian narrative, the spaghetti western narrative, the Clint Eastwood narrative.
Yeah.
We're talking here about a much more swarthy, empire, race of people. This one is a really good one. This is another old illustration. Most of these are from maps, actually. This is America. So this is a representation, a mascot of America. Now, there were many queens. Califia just comes up in the research because it took them such a long time to successfully remove her, I think. So she was respected as a warrior to this island of California, as it's shown.
Who is this exactly?
I have unfortunately no idea at the moment who she is, but I'm not surprised that this is sort of, it looks like some kind of leopard or cougar skin, and I'm not surprised that it's a female, because this was an empire ruled by women. And I'm very suspicious that it still is ruled by women, that America has to be ruled by women, or at least inverted males, even to this day. And I think there are curses. If you don't know the secret, if you don't understand the esoteric, I think there are curses. We've had a lot of signs of people losing their mental faculties after becoming president, if they are not actually the correct
So
sex. Yeah.
we're talking about hybrids coming into power in America, in the White House, and you're talking about a kind of
Yeah.
transgenderification having been part of a Babylonian archo-historical imperative that was introduced a long time ago, something along those lines.
Yes, I think I don't know if we can call it a curse or if it's electromagnetic waves. I mean, if you have to be a female because there's just such a lot of maybe spiritual energy. It could also be a curse because there were a lot of like massacres and removal of certain people and tribes. I mean, we have the Trail of Tears, which people say could be one of these Bermuda Triangle type effects where you have planes going down. I mean, I believe in the spirit world, and just because we can't see it within our ultraviolet infrared spectrum doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think that looking at this is very empowering,
Right.
because for many generations, the black man, the black American man, woman, has been under the illusion that they did not come from this land, that they were in fact African, right? So you have this label African American that's given to everyone, even though people have been debating for a long time. Well, actually, no, we are not African American. I am a native, a Yamasee Indian, or I'm a native Cherokee, and I think that that's quite interesting. That maybe we need to consider sort of realigning almost our history with something more closer to the truth. And the
Yeah.
truth is coming out in this kind of age of Aquarius awakening,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's very exciting to see. It's very exciting to see people understand who they are, and there's nothing negative here. There's no negative, nothing negative in that. We have to accept that. But yeah, I'll continue to show you a few more images.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that Europe was in fact a colony of America, and America is actually not the new world. It's the original, the oldest world.
America is the oldest world.
Yeah. So I think you could argue that the Creeks are actually the Greeks. And when you look at some of the cities like Rome in New York, and then
Yeah.
the inverted names of these cities, and also I wanted to have a look at like the origin, the most important like historic biblical parts of the world, like the Garden of Eden,
Yeah.
the four-headed river system that helps us locate that,
Yeah.
and that those cities, there are four cities around the Garden of Eden because they are the names of the rivers. And I've also been able to locate those through other people's research and books that have been published. And you can see that California was that one of the only places on Earth that has that four-headed river system. And then I've also looked at the original names of some of the cities in the United States, that those can also be linked up to actual biblical locations. And I mean, there are crazy amount of like Egyptian cities and city names
Like
in
Memphis.
the United States. Yeah. And I don't think that those are fake. I think that those are like real locations. Like I think the Dead Sea was in America. I think the original Ark was built in the United States. It's actually the only place where gopher wood can be harvested and grown. And gopher wood was, I think, the material used to make the Ark. So we're
Yeah.
talking here about Noah building the Ark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
And what the thinking it ended up in Mount Ararat, but began in America, kind of thing.
right, right. I'm not saying that's where the Ark landed after the flood, after the waters subsided, but yeah. I mean, The original were named. There were three empires in America: Tamaray, a Kemet. So the Mississippi is actually the true Nile, and
Interesting.
yeah, and also simply the size of it, the amount of like texts that refer to these seven plagues, these curses that were laid upon Pharaoh, how to scientifically explain like the sea turning red through a type of algae that exists there, and yeah, I've gone into some kind of specific things. The pests, you have a pest of frogs, you have a pest of locusts,
Yeah.
and trying to see where that would have been, and it probably would have been more likely to have been in a luscious, fertile land, which is what the promised land was supposed to be.
Very good.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there are also connections to maybe the Olmecs being this original line, one of the 12 tribes, one of the 12 Hebrew tribes, and the Olmec heads have always been hidden, but now that we found those, we can see that the facial features are very close to what we should be looking at them as Egyptians, but we're not allowed to do that because that is not within the narrative. Like,
Right.
think about the amount of pyramids that are not excavated in the United States, where we call them mounds. So mounds is a pile of earth. None of those are mounds. None of those are piles of earth. But there's this narrative drummed into everyone: oh, mound builders, mound builders. No,
Yeah.
they're incredibly advanced architects that were building pyramids because they understand how a pyramid through electromagnetic energy can in fact draw water out of the ground, can be a religious place, and there are pyramids in Idaho,
Yeah,
Wisconsin, St.
we've spoken about
Louis.
that multiple
Yeah,
times on Lazarus, and the whole pyramid thing is something we've tracked very, very closely. I've certainly tracked it for 25 years. So
wow,
indeed,
yeah,
I want to vault over to the Thule, the Vril, Maria Orsic, and Die Glock. So the
yeah.
German occult technology, secret societies, the mediumship, and the propulsion systems, the anti-grav, the wartime breakthroughs, and recovered ancient knowledge. I want to go into this not least because it speaks very much to, well, it's tethered and tallied to the Vatican, the vault, the Vatican library, the sequestration of technologies, the sequestration of information and knowledge and technology in the Vatican basement, the Smithsonian, and so on. This is very much connected in the more modern context to Maria Orsic and the Tula
Hmm.
society, to the genesis of Hitler, his long, very well attested fascination with the occult and so on. So speak about this. You've been deep in the Third Reich, Thule, Vril, Maria Orsic, and Die Glock. What were they really tapping into is the question. Were they working with physics, occult orders, mediumship, ancient text, contact, all of the above?
Um, Absolutely. I mean, the Thule Society is the mythos of the Third Reich. But once again, there's such an incredible amount of misinformation. It's very familiar to me though, the energy of the misinformation. Like like as soon as someone finds hieroglyphs in America, in the Grand Canyon or in the Arkansas Valley, and they find King Tut, they find tombs, they find golden staffs of the Egyptians, they find statues of bulls, they find these Orpheus egg,
Yeah,
lucky charms, fertility
yeah,
charms.
yeah.
And then the Smithsonian comes in, and suddenly, nobody is allowed to go there anymore, and everything gets taken away and ripped out, and probably some of it is sent to Africa to continue with the narrative of North Africa being
Right.
the original Egypt.
Yeah.
But I think what has happened with the Thule Society is a lot of that technology cannot be hidden. This is not hundreds of years ago. So we know, and people even have like parents, grandparents that fought in World War II. So
Yes.
they know that everyone was flying propeller planes, right?
Ah,
So
exactly.
everyone was flying propeller planes. The Spitfire was
Yeah.
an incredible piece of technology. It was, I think, one of the most effective war machines at the time, at the beginning of World War II. Now, everything changes around about like 1941, 1942, 1943, and suddenly the Nazi Empire starts flying something that nobody's ever seen before, which is the Messerschmitt 262, which is an incredibly important part of the narrative that we need to talk about. And I think it could be the reason why, even though there was no actual winner, a war like this is not won by anyone. There is no such thing as a winner. You start off World War II with Russia and Germany fighting together, invading Poland at the same time, and you end up with Russia turning against Germany, and almost every other great empire turning against this kind of German, Italian sort of Axis power that we're supposed to believe
Yes.
invented during wartime a jet engine.
Yes.
Now, I know that that's important because that's not something that anyone's ever put into a film. That's not something that anybody's ever spoken about. You have these completely fictional ideas of like the Red Skull with the this kind of octopus logo with the tentacles and stuff. Hydra, they call it in Avengers, but there's such an incredible like hidden truth. But it's hidden so well that nobody really knows what they're trying to say, apart from, oh, Red Skull's supposed to be Hitler, and then nobody looks into it any further than that. But Red
Yeah.
Skull is not supposed to be Hitler. This is Heinrich Himmler setting up the CIA. That's what's actually going on.
Exactly right.
And then when you look at the jet engine being introduced into the theater of war in the 1940s, and the Messerschmitt 262 flying 3 times as fast as almost any other propeller plane, because it's a jet, of course it's going to be faster, being able to carry these 30 millimeter guns on each side, these turrets. But somehow we're still supposed to believe that there wasn't a ceasefire agreement, some kind of payout. Then we're supposed to believe that Hitler took his own life, when obviously now you've got all these documentations coming out that he planned to take a submarine to Latin America very early on, and I don't know what to really believe. So I think we have to become autodidactic. We have to find out the truth ourselves. But an empire that has a jet engine does not lose against propeller planes that can't reach the same altitude. It just doesn't. The sky belonged to Nazi Germany after 1944. And this
Yes.
is just a theory based on the information that I found. And I found a lot more since I did my initial podcast with Guy Anderson on this topic. And I've actually found out that they developed subsequent later aircraft that look almost futuristic today. So yes, UFOs, absolutely, they found them in the Antarctic. I think they were finding all kinds of technology, reverse engineering it,
Of
and the
course.
Thule Society, and this concept of Hyperborea and land beyond the ice wall. It comes from, I think, the Americans knowing that there were still craft flying
That's
from
right.
some place in the north, and they or towards the pole star. So they knew something was still arriving. There were still planes surveilling them long after World War II.
Right.
And some of my research I put into an infographic, just to analyze the technology, so that because it's hidden from us. Not many people have heard of the Horton Ho 229. If you look at Lockheed Martin stealth planes today, they almost look identical. I think that all of those scientists that were taken during Operation Paperclip in like the 1946,
Yeah.
I don't think that was. I honestly do not believe that those were Nazi scientists being given a job and having their criminal records expunged by Eisenhower or Churchill at the time. I think that this was an agreement that was reached, and large parts of America were given to the German Empire. And I think this was just to stop this war, because you don't lose a war after you create something like this in 1944.
So this is one of the most staggering
Yeah, it's
revelations.
mind blowing.
This is
Yeah,
one of the most staggering things I've ever heard, and of course I love it. It's so beyond irreverent
yeah,
to the informed wisdom and knowledge base. But of course, what you're saying makes absolute sense. And I've got
mm,
to say, Charles, that this it always comes back down to what you see, what you touch, what you feel, what you can compute with your living brain
yeah,
is
yeah.
what the truth is. And outside of that, there's unbelievable cultural programming and dissonance that we've been led into. I'm just absolutely loving this. I've never thought of this particular piece, and I've got to say, your infographics are incredible. Please throw up as many of those as possible. I could look at this
Yeah.
for hours.
Yeah, no, I love doing the infographics. I think that you can just type the information in. You don't have to search for too much extra information. It does kind of complete a lot of things for you. Can you hear me? Oh,
I can hear you, but I've still got your earlier words ringing in my ears.
okay.
That the orchestration of the Second World War, and I'm talking to my audience here,
Mm.
the orchestration of the Second World War essentially segued into the controlled demolition of Nazi Germany and the whole Nazification of Europe. But it simply took all of its objective and technology and transposed itself into America. So there was some covert treaties struck. And what you're saying is that Nazi Germany essentially assimilated into America.
I think yes. When you see the symbolism of the facets underneath George Washington's arms in Washington, the reflecting pool, these people believe that they are Iranian. The Kali Yuga is part of the mythos. The Thule Society believe that they are just rediscovering, I guess, what is their birthright. Then you have the eagle. The eagle is important symbolism. You see that in America. You see that in ancient Rome. You see that in Native Americans too. The problem, the problem is that we've been told that there is somehow this kind of difference between the Caucasus Asian and the Hebrew black nobility. But
Yeah.
actually, it's all the black nobility. The black nobility is behind absolutely everything. The Rothschilds consider themselves to be Jews, right? This is black nobility. Who are the real Jews? Now Israel, the real Israel, is not today's modern day Israel. It is Tartaria. You have to hide that Israel to create your own Israel, and it doesn't have to be a long time ago, because when we are told about the German nobility turning into the British monarchy, how do we know? How do we know that that's actually what happened? Because it could have just been Germany rewriting our entire history after 1945, 46.
Well, they
So
did. That was the 1952 British Universal Curriculum, which was
yes,
installed,
Maxwell's, right? You're talking about Maxwell, all of
installed
the lines. Yeah.
all around the world, from
Right.
Mozambique to Canada.
Yeah. So that's why today you have all of these profitable companies that are basically in charge of everything. Like the vast majority of automobiles that are internationally sold are German and Japanese. How did that happen if we are to believe that the narrative involves a complete removal of that empire, a decimation, of that empire? Just because you blew up a few towns and churches outside of the capitals, because Tokyo wasn't completely, destroyed. It was like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These were Christian cities. These were not. These were very much Christian cities. Then you have also Dresden and Coventry. Like Dresden and Coventry both have Moorish elephant sigils on their as the city, right? Then you have Moritzburg right next to Dresden. That's literally the castle of the Moor. So there's elephant sculptures everywhere. Most European cities have a Moorish Brunnen. There's kind of like a black African looking a knight Saint Maurice everywhere. You have the Thespian Legion. You have the giants in France. You have the Moorheads in Italy that people
That's
still
right. That's right.
sell as souvenirs. So I don't. I think that separating yourself from your feet, from your foundation, makes you a god, and I think that's the intention. This is all mythical. This is all mythos. So I mean, just looking at the Volkswagen, Volkswagen is Hitler's car for the people, and
Yes.
it's as predominant an automotive brand today as it ever was.
Yes.
And that does not like empires are ruled by industry,
Yeah.
by bankers. You have the Warburgs in Britain, in London, the city of London, and you have the Warburgs in Berlin, and you had that all throughout World War II. Trading, selling, making sure that everyone had lots of ammunition, continuing the war. And I think they tried that with World War One, and then they perfected it with World War Two. And they
Yeah.
didn't even wait long enough for the next generation to become of fighting age. These greedy bankers didn't even think that one day there'll be AI, and we can
Hey,
calculate that it's
yeah.
impossible.
And
It's
blockchain. Right.
impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just simple logic that wins the day, I think.
I know, and I'm loving that, and that's exactly correct. Of the flame of pure truth is just burning away all that hubris, all of that.
Mm.
Fighters. Let's okay. Let's just we've touched on Antarctica and high jump here.
Yeah.
Hidden empires, bloodlines, and human remembrance. So bringing the wild material back into the larger Lazarus frame: power, memory, empire, spiritual inheritance, and the heist of human history. So, are
Yeah.
these separate rabbit holes, as you put it, or fragments of one contiguous buried story? That's my first question.
Yes, the story is quite simple, or I like to think it's simple, because most things are. I think our realm is overcomplicated intentionally. When everything is just electromagnetic, we are told that there's all these other elements that we need to worry about, like gravity. I think that it starts with probably Isaac and Jesus's line. So Esau sells his birthright, and that is the Mark and Edom, which translates to the little bear, right? The Ursaring, the
Yes,
red
yes.
the red shield. In German, rotes Schild or Rothschild. So we are simply trying to, or the Rothschild lineage, the 13th lineage, is trying to repurchase its birthright
Yeah.
by breeding into caveat families initially, and then later on into the actual monarchies today. If you have the breeding rights, it's usually because you paid for a war. So I think where Britain is concerned, it does seem like we're talking about the Battle of Waterloo, maybe bankrupted the British Empire to the point where they were then being sort of almost aided.
Let me slow
Um,
you down there. How
yeah.
could a battle bankrupt the British Empire?
So I think what happens is you go into like the empire goes into debt when it comes to hiring mercenaries. I think it's the mercenaries that really kind of take a lot of the resources. Empires were much smaller, smaller back then, and the fear of the various Moorish kings that make up this myth of Napoleon, who never existed, in my opinion. Napoleon actually means Neo Apollo, so the new Apollo. So we're looking here at kind of putting three or four possibly Moorish generals under one banner. Europe was ruled by these black swarthy generals. I have all of their sigils. I've made it my mission to prove this by looking at the war banners and
Europe
the
was
crest.
ruled by black swarthy generals. I fucking love you, Charles. So
It's incredible.
I
Yeah,
want to see that infographic.
I make infographics every
Oh,
day.
please, please, you've got to send them. I want our editor's got to stick this throughout this
Okay.
tour. I'm loving it.
I have the names of some of the like giants that they found. Like every city in Germany, I don't think people realize every city had a giant protecting it. Every town, even small towns, there's a myth for every almost every French, German, Austrian city has a giant. The
I knew that
sculptures, some of
I
them
knew
still have
that we still
sculptures,
have it.
and the
Right.
churches are nothing to do with religion. They're literally like I don't know what you could equate them to. Maybe a battle, town hall or something, right? The, we've done ourselves this disservice of considering that every rose window and spire and organ must be a church, must be religious. This
Yeah.
is just that energy center's
Yeah,
frequency.
cymatic technologies and what
Right,
have
right. And I want to get everyone away from that so that we can start finding out, well,
you.
what,
Good.
who are the giants? How were they paid?
Very
Did
good.
they just love the people?
Yeah.
Did they have some kind of connection with the land?
Yeah.
Was there a frequency to the people that were there?
Yeah.
That they were supposed to be there, and they'd only really find their own destiny if they lived there because that was where maybe they were born or something.
Right.
So
Right.
so so there's a weird thing like I went to one small town in Germany, and there was a church in the middle, which wasn't a church; it was a restaurant, but I thought it was a church. And there was this massive Egyptian-looking sculpture outside, and like a massive black man with cornrows. And I was like, okay, this has got to be, this can't be, this is too good. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And I think there's just not that much money, so there's no development economically, so they don't have these, new kind of, sort of architectural projects. And yeah, this was called Roland the Great, and Roland the Great apparently was this guardian saint, and they're always saints as well, which is interesting. So I don't think saints,
And what's the etymology of saint? Sant.
a Santa, yeah.
It's not
So
attractive, is it? The etymology.
I think it's a title, but it might not be a religious title at all, which
Right.
could be very interesting.
Right.
Rabbit
Right.
hole once again, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did the old power structure disappear or simply rebrand itself? I guess a bloody good question, man.
That is a great question. I mean, I think Babylon becomes Troy, Tartar City becomes Peking, Beijing,
But
Jerusalem
this
used
is
to
the
be.
film. This is the film I want to make with you.
Okay.
I really do want to talk to you about creating a do because now we've got AI tools. I've got
Yeah.
amazing team members. I want to create a short form film showing this superimposition of these arcane wheels of civilization and how they simply are overlays and overlays and overlays. I think that's fantastic. Please continue.
Yeah, I think like the oldest known city in America could be dated back to 3000 BC. Um, I mean, have you ever compared the geometry of like the Aztec cities like Abzu and to the Vatican and how they're identical?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. But then compare those, and this will blow your mind. Compare like Abzu Temple, which is this ocean water worship,
Yeah,
which reconnects to the ocean because
yeah,
that's the place where all the monsters went, and that's probably the place we should be looking at, like
right.
a connection to these giant tunnels systems underground
Mm.
that we also have in Beijing because they believe that those were like rivers of mercury,
Yeah,
which is I think a almost like a you could call that like a piezoelectric battery. So
yeah,
it's all about frequency, all about energy.
yeah,
And then you have the paths of the sun, which is Angkor Wat in Cambodia.
yeah.
Just compare the geometry from like a bird's eye view of Abzu Temple, Angkor Wat, those giant what looks like they're bells that are welded down into the ground, and then
Yeah.
you've got this. There's a cosmic temple, it's called, that has like a geometrical like a star map pattern on it, and compare that to like Beijing, compare it to even Berlin.
Mm.
Compare that to Washington, the reflecting pool and the obelisks, and Chicago, Illinois, like Chicago,
Yes, yes,
Illinois.
yes.
Then look back at like Venice. I think in Venice there's like this sort of city center, inner city, and Malta has this too, this geometry. They're all copying this geometry. And it is so similar to almost like a rule that we see throughout maybe like electrical circuit boards or anything that involves energy flow. And I don't think it matters the scale that you're at. There are rules to this realm, and I think this one empire, we can call it the Moors, we can call it the Moors, we can call it Atlanteans. It doesn't really matter who the teachers were, but they constructed that almost like an algorithm everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what we should be talking about. And there's not much going on where that's concerned, like as far as YouTube videos and content being created
Yeah,
today.
I'd love to learn more from you about what you think that the top 10, we should call it the Formosa top 10 lines of inquiry, investigative inquiry we really ought to be seriously leaning in on. I would love to hear that from you and receive that prompt from you and take that forward. Let me ask you here. Okay, in closing for this segment, because this is just as usual sparked off another of
Mm.
God knows how many conversations which I intend to take forward with you. But what, in your view, when you put everything together in your own remarkable mind, what do you believe that humanity is being asked to remember right now?
I think we're supposed to try to fight the low frequency mainstream, and try to get as many people out of it as we can. Because a lot of the information I'm giving you is information that was found by other people that were on that frequency, and then
Yeah,
they've put it into the realm of the interweb. But I think the discovery of AI is very much, or the rediscovery of AI is very much linked to this frequency. There's not a
good.
coincidence that Tartaria, AI, all of this stuff has happened at the beginning of the age of Aquarius. I don't think it's a coincidence. Now, we have to understand that humans are trying to curtail and control everything and monetize everything. But maybe it's always been there because those Russian Eastern Orthodox monks, the schema monks, they all had these electrical symbols like thousands of years ago. This is not a new thing. Electricity is ancient, AI is ancient, Wi-Fi
Yeah,
is ancient,
yeah,
Bluetooth is ancient.
yeah.
So can we take more people out so that they can put more pieces of the puzzle together? Because I think that's the reward. The reward is, yes, you can be in your own echo chamber forever and you can talk to people that agree with you, but I don't think you find anything that way. I think you have to get more souls. Souls are the key. You get more souls out of the Maya, out of the Mundio,
Yes.
and then they give you the reward. The reward is another piece of the puzzle,
Very good. Very good.
like almost like collecting Pokemon, right? So
Yeah, I like that.
you can't achieve anything in this context. We're not moving forward when it comes to the geometry of ancient cities because we have to take those souls out of here. They're all the souls are here in within the algorithm.
Right,
Okay,
right, right.
you can't really manipulate the amount of souls that are here. That's a god entity game. We're not playing. We're playing checkers, but someone's playing chess. Do you see what I
Yes.
mean? But we don't have all the pieces to play chess yet. So that's what we're doing. We're collecting the rook, the bishop. We're trying to understand that the bishop is actually an afro. It's an afro-wearing Egyptian. We understand that the rook is not a castle that moves. It's an elephant with a castle on top. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and and I think that's just an illustration that I come back to a lot. That we don't really know that the pawn is everything. The pawn is not the weakest piece on the board. It's actually the king and the queen. It's everything. So
Yes. And
can we take those people? Those because at the end of the game, at the end of the chess game, if the pawn reaches the end, what does it become? You know, and it's such a powerful like. I mean, this particular analogy works in so many different ways that I think if we don't pull more people out, selflessly help people ascend, and ignore this kind of mainstream mundial fake news like cycle that we are all subjected to, right? Improve their diet, improve the knowledge that they have, realize that a lot of attention deficit disorder children are actually just being protected by their ancestors so they don't get that brainwashing and they have more, they can do more with the time that they have. But
yeah.
adults shouldn't stop education. It should start when your left and right brain starts to fuse. That's when it should start.
Mm.
And I
That's
think that's the frequency is right now. This is frequency. This
indeed,
is yeah.
indeed. Couldn't agree more. The emergence of this new geometry of light, and I lecture in my own private talks, which are about 3 hours long. I lecture on this particular subject, and the commonality is always the new geometry of light that we're moving through, and that the transition from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age, passing through the ecliptic, and essentially reconvening with the quanta that we left behind at the last semi-arc of the grand precession of the equinox, the great fall, so to speak, the kind of fall of Atlantis, all of that. So that there is this extraordinary resurrection, which is why this is called the Lazarus Symposium. There is an innate and immanent restoration and restitution, resurrection from the great galactic sleep that is happening anyway. It's a self-organizing principle. So what you're talking about, this kind of redemption, absolution, redemption, salvation complex connected to how we need to lead each of us. We each need to be leading one another home in that sense. And frankly, we're doing so in either which way. That is definitely what the emergence is. And this morphogenetic upshift that we're on the brink of, I think is connected very much to that. What you're doing, so psycho-intellectually, I think is a critical piece. What I find also interesting, Charles, I don't know what your take is on AI, but if you were to take the sum total of your learning thus far, and I know that you've graciously mentioned that you glean much of it from other researchers and people who've done this noble work. But it seems to me that you're bringing some extraordinary pieces together. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with someone on History who's thrown three boomerangs in one go at me. That to me is extraordinary. I would love to take the body of your work, dump it into the best AI engine, sit back and just say, okay, compute, motherfucker. Let's see what does it look like? What does reality look like? What does real history look like? Yeah, presumably you are doing some tremendous work with AI. What is your best takeaway on that in closing?
I think it's part of the. I mean, I think this is a ripple effect of the COVID lockdowns. Yeah.
Oh, oh,
So there's no other way to really talk about it because that's when it happened, and that's when
very good.
everyone keeps saying, 2020. There's so many people like.
Yeah,
So I think
that
if
was the
you
benediction. That was the great benediction, the
this
greatest
is our
dragon.
modern day awakening. This is like Jesus coming to Nazareth of our modern era. This is like think about the frequency of Jesus
Well,
making
the second coming,
Constantine completely removes all of the archons, as Elizabeth Hancock likes to say. So
Yeah.
he removes all of these Greek gods that they renamed and built millions of statues, thousands of temples.
Yes.
Think about that. Just think about not the academic story. Just think about how one man executed by the Jews by Pontius Pilate becomes the single inspiration for an entire empire. I mean, we're not just talking about a random empire like in the Hindu Kush or something. We're talking
Yeah.
about one of the greatest empires in the history of the human race. Changes its entire frequency and follows one man that they obviously at that point mistakenly
Mm.
put to death. I mean, where are the Pharisees and Sadducees? They're still here. They had to change their name, but we're
Yeah.
still following Jesus Christ, and that's the one religion under attack.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
and
Beautifully said.
it's there. It's right in front of us. I mean, you start to realize that the miracles are happening right in front of you, and we don't see them because people at the time didn't see Jesus for who he was either. And the people didn't see all kinds of things um, uh, if you think about the great awakenings that happened, like the road to Gethsemane for Saul becoming Paul, right? Uh, Sometimes angels come down. Sometimes they just enhance everyone's consciousness. And I think creativity is one of those divine blessings, like a gift almost. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's very funny because I don't always put things into context. So communicating with someone who's on the same kind of wavelength almost is when you put your own puzzles together.
Yes.
Because a lot of this I haven't spoken on really with anyone. So, but the theories are there. I mean, I'm thinking all the time. I'm thinking when I'm waking up in the morning. I'm thinking when I'm walking around in the park. I'm thinking all the time. I'm putting the puzzles together all the time.
Yeah.
So it's and I think a lot of people are. There's a reason why our frequency in music was taken down. There's a reason why we went from like 440 to 432 hertz. Because the most powerful thing on this earth is the human. We were given that privilege,
That's the God technology. It's also
we are generating electricity within the human heart. I believe that.
We've explored that with Dan Winter. Met 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
This is not a new thing. In the 1950s, they started publishing these dissertations. But people ignored it. People visited. The doctors that came up with it, they ignored it. There's references to this in many different ancient cultures, to the heart being this electric like Gordian knot, almost like snakes around a staff.
That's right. Well, that would be a great start point for our next conversation, actually, to speak.
I can talk about that for a long.
Well, let's do that. I know that Christy's in the green room, and she'll take a note here. But if we do begin with the electromagneto Shiva Shakti premise of duality, why don't we do that? Then move into Cain and Abel, Enki and Enlil, Tartaria, Khazaria, and all of that, and just look at the great dialectic. That would be a great mapping exercise, wouldn't it?
Yes, I would. I'll be up for that. That's
good stuff. Well, we're going to set that for the next symposium. I'm not letting you get away with that one. This is beautiful. Charles, thank you so very much. I've absolutely loved this conversation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And I like that I don't have to explain the groundwork of too much. I can just go straight into the esoteric theories.
Right.
And, thank you.
Thank you.
Shaping Europe's golden dream in tiles and walls, their art survives. The Moors who changed our lives.
From Africa, the armies came, bringing knowledge, wealth, and fame. Water systems, music grand, built upon this conquered land.
Were they all related?